both the kind of reproduction are there. And in the asexual reproduction, the most common method, that is by means of motile spores, that is zoospores. That is the most common method of asexual reproduction. Zoospore formation occurs in early spring or summer season, and they are produced singly within the cell. Single zoospore is produced per cell, and in fact any cell of the thallus is capable of giving rise to zoospore, means they are able to take part in the reproduction. It's not that in some of the cases we say only 20% of the thallus or 30% of the thallus is able to reproduce or is able to take part in the reproduction. Here, each and every cell of the colloidal thallus is capable of undergoing asexual reproduction. It is capable of producing the zoospores. And usually we can say the terminal cells. Now all the cells are capable, but only the terminal and the subterminal cells, they are taking part in the production of the zoospore. And as we can see, if we see the terminal cells of the thallus, then terminal cells will be, each cell will be producing single biflagellate zoospore. Say that these spores, they are motile spores. So the formation of zoospore is started, you can say, by what? By rounding off of the protoplast. Suppose this is our vegetative cell. The first thing which will occur is that the protoplast will retract from the walls, from the cell walls, and gets rounded off, and then all the zoospore contents, they will form, we can say they will get accumulated in the center of the cell, and then these contents will develop to flagella, because zoospores are the naked spores, they are without any wall. It is just the accumulation of the protoplast and the nuclei that take the shape of either, we can say, elliptical shape, or it can be pear shaped, but the zoospores are the naked spores, they are without any wall. This you have to keep in mind, because when we talk about different kind of spores, automatically you will see when we talk about aplanar spores, we say they are thin walled spores. So zoospores are the spores which are without any wall. That is why the term we use is they are the naked spores. No wall is there which is lining the protoplasm. It is just that the protoplasm takes a different shape and it develops it develops the two flagella at one end, and then we can say they have chloroplast also, which is laterally placed, because we have, I told you that the chloroplast in the case of colloidal is parietal. It is present on one side. Then one thing is there, we have no report of eye spot present in the zoospore of the colloidal. That has not been reported, we can say. And zoospores, when they are mature, the wall of the thallus, that will disintegrate and they will come out. By disintegration of wall of the thallus, the zoospores, they are liberated, or they are thrown out, we can say, from the thallus. Now these zoospores, on their liberation, they come to rest. They will rest for some time, and after the rest, what happens that they reabsorb their flagella. Means flagella will be, either we use the term reabsorb or we use the term retraction. That they retract the flagella. Retraction of the flagella will take place, and then they will secrete a wall around themselves. Secretion of wall will be there, and then these zoospores will keep on dividing. The nucleus will divide mitotically, and then they will keep on adding cells, and ultimately they will produce the thallus. So This is, we can say, one mode of vegetative reproduction, that is by formation of the zoospore, and each zoospore per cell, single zoospore per cell is formed. Then also we have the formation of aplanospores, the thin walled spores, aplanospores. And another thing which is associated with aplanospore is that aplanospores are non-motile spores. They are non-flagellate spores, and they are formed under unfavorable conditions. Zoospores are always formed under favorable conditions because this is the most common method of asexual reproduction in most of the algal plants. Then we have again aplanospores are also formed singly within the cell. Single aplanospore per cell is formed. So these are the two modes of asexual reproduction which occurs in coleochaete. Now coming to the sexual reproduction, and sexual reproduction here is also oogamous and highly specialized. Sexual reproduction in coleochaete is oogamous number 1, and it is highly specialized because the male and the female gametangium, they are having a very specific structure, we can say, in it, and the male sex organ is known as antheridia. Female sex organ is known as oogonium or carpogonium. Male sex organ is known as antheridia, or antheridium is singular, and female sex organ is known as carpogonium. Now first we will take up the structure of the carpogonium, or this is also known as, in simple terms, what? Oogonium. We will take up this structure, and later on we will take up the male gamete. First we will take up the structure of the carpogonium or oogonium. In the heterotrichous filaments, we can say of Carpogonium fulminata, which has both prostrate and the erect system. The Carpogonia are borne terminally on the short lateral branches of erect filaments. Means they are not borne on prostrate system, they are borne on erect system, and that also on the lateral branches. It is because if we suppose this is the branch which is bearing the Carpogonium, which is in the shape of a flask. Later on, it is pushed to one side. Initially, it is terminal, but when the branches are formed, then branches become terminal and this becomes lateral. So when it starts its initiation, it is terminal in position. But as the branches grow on the sides, then it becomes lateral in position. And Carpogonium consists of, as you can see, the lower basal swollen portion, and that lower, we can say, enlarged swollen portion is known as the oogonium, and this upper portion, which is tubular, that is known as trichogonium. Neck-like portion, we can say, that is known as the trichogonium. It is quite long, and it is the basal portion which contains the prominent nucleus. That is present in the basal portion, and this nucleus also is surrounded by one or more chloroplasts. Distinct pyrenoids are there in them, because I told you in the vegetative cell we have only single chloroplast per cell, but here it can be one or more, which are surrounded by the pyrenoids. And the trichogyne consists of colorless cytoplasm. Then towards the maturity, the basal portion, now we can say this enlarges in size, and now we call it as oospore. This is known as now the oospore or the egg. That means the mature female gametangel. When it is fully formed, completely we can say grown, then it has a basal swollen portion with the enlarged nuclei, that is known as the egg or the oosphere. Sorry, it is oosphere. Or the egg. And then at the tip, when it is fully mature and ready to receive the male gamete, the tip will get punctured. There will be spore at the tip and certain amount of cytoplasm oozes out, or it is extruded from that pore in the form of a drop, and now we can say the oosphere is ready for fertilization. Means we can say the oogonium, when it is growing and it is fully grown, it consists of basal swollen portion, which we call it as oosphere, which has a prominent enlarged nuclei, cytoplasm, chloroplast, etc., and contains a long neck-like structure, which we call it as trichogyne. Trichogyne consists of colorless cytoplasm. Nuclei is present at the base, no nuclei in the trichogyne. And when it is ready for fertilization, the step which indicates us that now the oosphere is ready for fertilization, that is the formation of a pore at the tip of the trichogyne, and through that pore the cytoplasm extrudes out in the form of a small drop. Now this is the condition, we can say, which is just prior to fertilization. Now this is the structure of the carpogonium or the oogonium. Now coming to antheridium. Antheridium, they are also born terminally on the branches of the erect system, and the main filament which bears the oogonium may also develop the antheridium on its lateral branch. So what do we call it when the same thallus is bearing male and female structures? Monoecious. Monoecious same or homothallic. It is homothallic or monoecious. Dioecious means the two are present on two separate alli. So we have, we can say antheridium as well as oogonium, which can be born on the branches of the same thallus. So it can be monoecious also. And the outgrowths which are ultimately getting converted into the antheridium, we can say that the protoplast of this metamorphizes into single colorless antherozoid. Means the antheridium, here we have all the lateral branch near the carpogonium gets developed into the antheridium. Now this antheridium, the protoplasm of each antheridium now gets converted into single spermatozoid. Because you have seen in the other algae that antheridium forms large number of spermatozoids, that the nucleus divides mitotically and produces large number of male gametes. But here we have that the single spermatozoid or antherozoid, we can say, that is one and the same thing, that they are developing from the antheridium. Or this can also be known as what? Antheridium antherozoid mother cell. Because you will find different terminology in different books. That either we have antherozoid mother cell, which is in other words antheridium or spermatozoid mother cells, because they are going to produce the spermatozoid or the antheridium. Spermatozoid as well as the sperm. This is same. Sperm is produced within the antheridium, and they are biflagellate structures. The two flagella, they are present or inserted at the anterior end, and there is a distinct nucleus, very simple enterozoid containing two flagella and single nuclei, and they are escaping from by the dissolution of the wall. They come out, and on the single thallus we can say we have large number of lateral branches, and it's not that single antheridium and single carpogonium is formed. We have several antheridium and several carpogonia on the different branches, because we have hundreds of branches in one thallus. So large number of antheridium and carpogonium, they are formed, and similarly they are almost maturing at the same time. So large number of male sperms or spermatozoids, they are released in the thallus, and similarly we have large number of carpogonium which are ready for fertilization. So these male gametes or the spermatozoids, they swim around and then they enter into the open pore of the trichogyne. When they enter into the open pore, that means they will be getting slipped over to the female nucleus, and then fertilization will take place. And this is when we say cytoplasm extrudes out from the pore of the trichogyne, that contains certain either proteinaceous substances or certain other inorganic substances which attract the male sperm towards the trichogyne. So this is known as a chemotactic attraction. That this oozed out cytoplasm attracts the sperm towards itself, and when the sperms get attracted and they get near the cytoplasm, then they automatically slip into the neck and they reach up to the female nucleus or the oosphere, and then fertilization will take place. Now here we can say after the fertilization there is a phase in the coleochaete which we don't find in other algae, that is the post-fertilization changes. So before the formation of the thallus, after fertilization, next step is what? Germination of the zygote and the thallus. We have certain changes of phase in the life cycle of the coleochaete where certain changes occur after fertilization, and only after that we have the formation of the new thallus. So now coming to the post-fertilization changes, then there are three obvious changes which occur. Number one is development of the sheath. Post-fertilization changes. There are three changes which occur. Development of sheath around the zygote. Formation of the spermocarp, and third is the germination of the zygote. These are the three changes which occur once the fusion of the two nuclei takes place in the oosphere. Now, following the fertilization, the basal portion of the oogonium will enlarge. Now, one thing more is there before we come to the post-fertilization changes. Like I told you that for fertilization, the male gamete enters into the female gamete, into the trichogyne. Now, the flagella are withdrawn. We have the nuclei which comes to lie near the female nucleus. Now one thing is there that the female nucleus is quite enlarged in size and male nucleus is smaller in size. The first step before fertilization that will occur is the increase in the size of the male nucleus, so that the two nuclei are of the similar size. Then fertilization will take place. That nuclei enters into the trichogyne, it reaches near the oospore, but it does not immediately fuse with this. First it will enlarge in size and then the fusion of the two nuclei will take place and we have the formation of the zygote. This I forgot to mention, but we have to keep in mind that immediately fusion does not occur. First, the nuclei, they come to have the similar sizes. Then only fusion will occur. Now in the post-fertilization, first we have the development of the sheath. In the development of the sheath, because we know that the zygote is formed where? In the thallus itself, on the erect thallus. So it is surrounded by the vegetative filaments of the plant. So these vegetative filaments, we can say, they enlarge and they will be forming a cover. Because after fertilization, as we know, this is the structure of the female Carpogonium. When we have the fusion and we have the zygote is formed, now this will be cut off. Trichogyne will be shed off. And we have a rounded zygote. Or we call it, now we can call it a oospore. Now the vegetative filament will come and they will start enclosing the oospore. They will form a very protective sheath around itself, and the formation of the protective sheath is initiated by the act of fertilization. As soon as fertilization is over, the fusion of the two nuclei is over, the hyphae the filaments which are present, which are surrounding the oospore, they start enveloping the zygote. They start forming the sheath around the zygote and they are forming the short branches and enclosing it and forming a protective covering layer around this. And now this structure, we can say, when it is surrounded by the protective covering of the filaments are vegetative, but inside we have what? We have the reproductive structure. So this structure now develops into what? This develops into spermocarp. Spermocarp is the reproductive structure surrounded by the vegetative sheath. Is it clear? That this spermocarp is not a structure which is having only one ploidy level. The vegetative filaments which are enclosing it are haploid. Inside, the zygote is what? It is diploid. So the ploidy level of the spermocarp is two types. It has diploid oospore in it, the zygote or the oospore, and that diploid oospore is surrounded by haploid vegetative filaments which are enclosing it, which are forming a protective sheath around this. And this structure is known as now the spermocarp. Now this spermocarp ultimately leads to what? This is a phase which is a resting phase. This is developing, we can say, lots of pigments in this. Initially the spermocarp looks like red in color, orange in color, and green also it appears. Initially it is green, then gets different pigments, they appear, and we have red and orange color. Ultimately, when the spermocarp is fully mature, it is what? It is brown pink. And it is a resting phase. It is resting phase which will tide over, we can say, the winter conditions. Winter season, the zygote will remain enclosed inside this, in the double membrane of this. And once the season is favorable, the conditions are favorable, the spring season has come, then what will be the step? First step will be the meiosis. Because plant is what? Plant is haploid. It is not diploid, but we have the diploid nuclei here. This will undergo meiosis. It will undergo meiosis to produce, meiosis produces what? Resultant 4 cells. These 4 cells, they will keep on dividing again and again, and we will have 32 to 64 nuclei. And these 32 to 64 nuclei, like we have this structure, they will get enclosed by walls. Means each nuclei will be partitioned by wall. Like this. The whole of the spermocarp will contain, we can say, single nuclei in single cell. Now, these nuclei will get converted into what? They will get converted into zoospores. They will get converted into structures which are similar to zoospores, but now we don't call it as zoospores, they are known as meiospores. Either we call it as meiospores or we call it as meiospores. Because these zoospores are produced after meiosis. So they are known as meiospores. Then these meiospores, when they have to come out, we have almost, we can say, the partition wall or the breaking of this spermocarp occurs in the middle. Almost half of the cells are above and half of the cells are on other side, which are producing the zoospores. So here we have the breaking of the spermocarp, and the zoospore, meiospores, they are released. And these meiospores will germinate in the same manner as the zoospores which we have done in the asexual reproduction. So in the similar manner, they will be germinating to give rise to the coleochaete thallus. So this is the life cycle of the coleochaete, and the homework which I want to give you is that you will draw the graphic life cycle of the coleochaete. And then another thing which we are, like I told you, you have to write down the definition of the monostromatic condition in the thallus and the summary of the whole plant. I am going